How would I describe my origin story? Failure. I failed over and over and over again. I kind of made a decision. Either I could wallow in that or I could use it. Oh, I closed the door the wrong way! If you're someone who feels too old, if you're someone who feels like you've missed your wave, don't feel that way. Just use all that stuff, bottle it up, harness it, and just keep driving your legs. I'm Will Neff, and I am the newest member of 100 Thieves. Chipotle order, easy. I get the burrito bowl, steak with the red salsa, and a little guac, and it looks pristine. Little Will was a guy that loved to entertain, as I do now. In my 5th grade yearbook, when everybody else was giving their what will you be when you grow up? I wanna be a fireman, I wanna be an astronaut. Mine was, I want to host Saturday Night Live. I had a lot of difficulty reading. I had a lot of difficulty in school. I'm dyslexic, I'm ADHD, and my dad was a really smart guy, so I always kind of felt like this air of failure on myself, but I knew I was good at making people laugh. And so I carried that, and I knew if I was gonna do something big, I had to do it that way. So I made a promise to myself that I would entertain for a living or totally burn out. So when I was 18 years old, I moved to Chicago and I worked at Second City. If you don't know Second City, some of the greatest comedic talent ever has come out of that school. I worked taking tickets for the main stage, and then I also performed on Donnie's Skybox in Second Stage, and I was also in the school. So my days looked like I would wake up, go study at Second City all day, work there all night. Aside from that, I studied for 5 years at Groundlings. If you don't know, Groundlings is like the height of improv comedy in the world, and some of the greatest comedians, Will Ferrell and the like, have come out of that school. That was an amazing experience. Yeah, I try and bring a lot of that character work into my streams, obviously. Whenever I do RP, which has been a huge hit for me.
If you don't give people a reason to hate one another, they might go to art school.
It's so funny because I'm one of so many creators in this space whose parents hated gaming. My PC setup, as a way to discourage me playing video games, or maybe it just shook out that way, was in the room above my garage. And I lived in the Northeast where it got very cold. And I vividly remember playing Diablo at below freezing temperatures, where I would have my feet in between the rungs of a space heater. But yeah, I remember being fascinated with the storytelling and the freedom of video games, specifically Diablo early on, Warcraft 3, Metal Gear. When I was younger, man, that was just I was so gripped. I went to my dad's boarding school. So my dad went to a boarding school 50 years before me, and then my brothers went there, and it's this prestigious school in the Northwest. It's like Hogwarts mixed with jail. Their dean of students, I won't say his name, but he came and took me aside one day and was like, you don't belong here. You're not good enough. You're only here because of your father. You should drop out. You should leave. I was 14 years old at the time. I just remember I made this decision where I was I'm going to show you. If I have to move heaven and earth, I will break your mind. You are going to regret this moment. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not an angry person, but I definitely carry an insane chip on my shoulder. But I think that's always served me, because from a very early age, I knew I was okay, I know what your superpower is. I know what you're better at, and it's just taking abuse. You can take more pain. You can be more uncomfortable. You can go for longer. You can try harder than the people around you, and you have to make that your superpower. You have to steer into the suck. Just embrace how much it's gonna suck day to day. So I was working a job I wasn't in love with, and I started applying, just sending flyers basically. And after months of just sending resumes off into the void, I sent a resume with a spec video to BuzzFeed. And the spec video was people try smelling salts for the first time. They sent me back an email and they're like, we thought you were really funny. We thought your editing was really funny. We'd like to invite you to our internship program. And I remember I hated my job at the time. I won't say what it was, but it was brutal. I went to the stairwell of the building I worked at and I just sobbed. It certainly felt at that moment like this massive step forward.
Was there a moment for you where entertainment and gaming kind of merged?
I always tell the story about how I started playing League. It was on an island in the middle of Lake Michigan, and I had nothing to do. And I had like my uncle's crappy laptop, and I was like, what can I do? So I downloaded League, and I was awful at it. So I was like, I gotta watch people who know how to play this game. And I started watching Scara, and I'm a Cutie Pie, and IW Dominate, and I was like cackling, laughing. And that was like my first experience watching creators play a game and entertain, and I was just like riveted. The reason I got into streaming was because I was probably a month away from moving to Michigan and beekeeping with my cousin. And I was getting drunk at Hasan's old house, and he had just started streaming, and he had like 200 concurrent viewers. And he was like, you have to do this. You'd be better at this than I would. Do it. And I was like, no, I can't. He's like, do it. He pushed me into spending $600 of my last $2,000 on a gaming PC.
I'm gonna try and throw an explosive on the roof. Suck explosives. Oh God, I got hit from behind.
I was so bad at streaming when I first started. I don't know anybody who starts streaming and is good at it. Streaming is an education. You learn about some piece of tech or some, like a way to do something better every day. It's funny, you're like, you started with failure. And I'm very pointed about that because I think a lot of people who are like forward-facing talents try and pretend like they've never had a bad day in their life, right? So I try and wear the failure very honestly. I think it's good for people watching to know that there are a lot of down days, and if you feel like a failure now, it's not the end of the road. My first few months streaming were spent watching other streamers and trying to like amalgam what they did well. Like Kip Boga was a guy I watched all the time, and I was fascinated by all the different things that he incorporated and how smooth his stream was and how he made this one space feel like an entire set. Yeah, it was just trial and error, really, a lot of it.
Was there a specific turning point that you remember?
My buddy had this mascot costume that was a giant slice of pizza. I thought it was hilarious. So I drove to his house and I grabbed this giant mildewy slice of pizza and I held it on top of my car, got it home. And I remember one day someone gifted a large amount of subs and I threw this pizza outfit on and I started dancing. That clip of me in the pizza costume was everywhere. And then afterward, everyone was like, Mr. Pizza, we want Mr. Pizza. And I just remember being like, okay, I can do this. Strangely, that was the moment when everybody was like on board with Mr. Pizza that I was like, yes, I understand. I see the code. 100 Thieves came into my life. I guess my very first face-to-face experience was when Austin kind of started flirting with the idea of joining. And I was exposed to the facility and I did some hosting in one of the rooms and I met a lot of the team. And I think that was like a moment where I was like, wow, they are incredible. And I think for a little boy who had just walked into the industry, it was kind of like when you would, as a kid, be like, bases loaded, 3 balls, 2 strikes. You know, like you kind of picture yourself and I was like, man, that'd be really cool if I could count myself among them one day. And then that dream became a little bit more palpable every time I came in and did something, or if I became more successful, or until one day there was kind of like the hypothetical question, what if? And so in a big way, I feel like I manifested this. I think at this point, my intro video is out. Last night when we were filming it, I kind of had this moment where there's this giant crew and I'm doing stunt choreography where I was like, this is surreal, man. And I was just so happy.
That was good.
In terms of your universe, what are things that you want within that community?
Sure. I actually had someone in my community put this the best way a few months ago and it made me cry. She wrote me and basically said, my community, everyone is welcome, as long as you're respectful to everyone. But I want in that same breath to acknowledge that we are human beings. I think a lot of times inclusive spaces feel almost like hermetically sealed in that people have to be so careful with one another. But I think there is a respect while still being human, right? Let your hair down. Like, you know, we can all be a little silly and without disrespecting one another. And I think that's what I've aspired to. Come one, come all, it doesn't matter who you are, but let your hair down and relax and laugh at yourself and laugh at the incongruities of life.
When she called me back in 2 hours and she was like, William, you f***ing idiot. I was on a ski lift with their dad.
lot of kids in their career are waiting, especially I was waiting for someone to uplift me. You know, hey, that kid's got talent. Let's put him on the front page. Help never came. And a quote that I heard that I love is that people don't see talent, they see consistency. My advice to you is if you have an aspiration in any industry, do it. If you want to make film, start filming on your iPhone. If you want to make music, start recording with whatever can record sound. Practice every day. It is that experience that will make you. It is that failure time, that time that no one sees, that makes you the creator or the businessman that you want to be. So if you are a creator specifically, don't wait for someone to give you a budget. Don't wait for someone to hire you. Make stuff, make stuff, make stuff. What's next for Will Neff? I would love to start making more film again. I want to be a guest instructor for Peloton, the bikes. I will always stream. I kind of want to do like a Takeshi's Castle show. I want to do a film festival where I have like audience submissions. It's kind of stuff I would love to get into.